Our other breaking news story, President-elect Donald Trump, his first formal news conference was held today since winning the election, and it was a memorable one.
That's right. Most of it focused on the Russian hacking scandal during the presidential campaign.
KCAL9 political reporter Bryan recaps today's event, including a real tense exchange between Trump and one of the CNN reporters.
Really tense exchanges. In some ways, this felt like a football game. There were people cheering in the background, and there was some tough work on the field. This news conference was supposed to be about Trump's plans to reorganize his business holdings to eliminate any conflict of interest. But with issues like Russian cyber attacks and new reports out this week containing unsubstantiated but potentially explosive information about Trump and the Russians, the conflict of interest plan was quickly shuffled off. At his first news conference in nearly 6 months, President-elect Donald Trump, who will be taking the oath of office next week, came out swinging, admitting for the first time what he sidestepped for weeks about the cyber attacks on Democratic emails and documents.
As far as hacking, I think it was Russia, but I think we also get hacked by other countries and other people, and hacking's bad, and it shouldn't be done. But look at the things that were hacked. Look at what was learned from that hacking. That Hillary Clinton got the questions to the debate and didn't report it. That's a horrible thing.
Wednesday morning, in response to reports that the Russians had obtained salacious intelligence that could be used to blackmail him, Trump launched into a furious counterattack against American intelligence agencies, whom he accused of leaking the information. First tweeting, intelligence agencies should never have allowed this fake news to leak into the public. One last shot at me. Are we living in Nazi Germany? Soon thereafter, Trump doubled down on the notion at his news conference.
I think it was disgraceful that the intelligence agencies allowed any information that turned out to be so false and fake out. And that's something that Nazi Germany would have done and did do.
A former CIA director told the CBS Evening News such harsh attacks on the intelligence community are raising the stakes for everyone.
I think what's at stake is the security of the United States of America. The first duty of a president is to protect our country, and he cannot protect our country without the ability to get good intelligence on what our adversaries are up to. That demands a relationship of trust, and unfortunately, I think I see a relationship in which that trust doesn't exist right now.
Asked about the appearance of him developing a buddy-buddy relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin, Trump blew it off.
If Putin likes Donald Trump, I consider that an asset, not a liability, because we have a horrible relationship with Russia.
The main reason for calling the news conference was supposed to have been for Trump and his attorney to explain how they would avoid conflicts of interest between his worldwide companies and what's best for the United States. USC political communications professor Dan Schnurr says Trump was able to steer the news conference in the direction he wanted it to go.
Trump is savvy enough to know that by making news about Russia and hacking, about immigration, about the Supreme Court, about any number of other issues, the business holdings, which is a potentially controversial topic for him, will get little or no attention whatsoever. Not only did it not dominate the news, it'll barely make the news.
Second, perhaps, to U.S. intelligence on Trump's news conference hit list was the news media, CNN in particular, after they broke the news this week about the intelligence memo containing allegations that the Russians had compromising material and information on Trump's personal life and finances.
You give us a chance.
Your organization
You are attacking our news organization.
Your organization
Can you give us a chance to ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir, can you state, Mr. President-elect,
Go ahead.
can you state categorically,
she's asking a question. Don't be rude.
Yeah, this is the World Wrestling Federation meets press conferences.
Claremont McKenna political science professor Jack Pitney says the news conference held at Trump Tower in New York, with hundreds of journalists and a crowd of applauding Trump staffers, was unusual to say the least.
This news conference was just about the most contentious I've ever seen from a president-elect or a president. The only thing I can compare it to is Richard Nixon during Watergate. And even that was gentlemanly compared with Trump's relationship with the press today.
On the question of his intentions on Obamacare, Trump said he will carry out his campaign pledge to get rid of it and replace it with a better program that will be carried out swiftly and in sync.
It'll be repeal and replace. It will be essentially simultaneously. It will be various segments, you understand, but will most likely be on the same day or the same week, but probably the same day, could be the same hour.
Other topics that came up at today's news conference were building the wall along the border with Mexico. Trump said construction will begin quickly without waiting for Mexico to agree to pay for it, although he still insists that will happen one way or another. And he pledged to nominate a new Supreme Court justice to fill the vacant seat of Justice Antonin Scalia, who passed away almost a year ago, leaving the court evenly divided ever since. What did I leave out?
Well, Dave, we understand that tonight, several hours after that news conference, there were some new developments on the issue of that document that details some more information. Do you have anything on that?
Yeah, there actually were some late developments. Tonight, CNN reports that President-elect Trump spoke with James Clapper, the director of national intelligence, on the telephone this evening about that leaked document containing damaging and unconfirmed information about Trump. Clapper assured Trump the document was not produced or leaked by his agencies, and he said they have not reached any conclusion about the reliability of the information. In addition, in a statement tonight, Clapper wrote, part of his obligation is to ensure that policymakers are provided with the fullest possible picture of any matters that might affect national security. Lena, back to you.